For years, outdoor brands have shouted to the skies, each claiming their gear is better, tougher, and smarter than the next. They bragged about seams and fabrics, about features you didn't need. And when the world started caring about the planet, those same brands tried to have it both ways, making the same old stuff, but slapping on a green label to soothe the conscience. But Livesen isn't like the rest. Livesen was born to help you strip it all down, to live with intention. Own less, live more. It's a simple creed, but simplicity is what matters most. We've been timeless since before we even had a name. Livesen grew out of a deep hunger for freedom, a love for this earth and the people who walk it. We don't obsess over the gear. We focus on the life the gear lets you live. Retailers, think on this. How many brands do you carry that are cut from the same old cloth, filling racks with sameness? Couldn't your floor use something different? A brand that doesn't just sell clothes, but sells a way of being? Livesen gear is built to last, to be repaired, to stick with your customers for a lifetime of trails, peaks, and adventures. In the Ozarks, we have an honest, gritty sensibility with a sharp edge of style. It's what happens when the love of the land meets a modern streak. And if you're wondering, Livesen's founder, Andrew Gibbs Dabney, can explain it better than anyone. Look, here's the straight talk. We believe in Livesen enough to put our name on it. Send in your Fall 25 preseason orders by January 15th. Mention this podcast, and you'll get the Rock Fight preseason special, a clean 2% off, stacked on top of Livesen's own preseason program discounts. Don't wait. Stock the brand that's burning hot in the outdoor world, the brand that's here for the long haul. Be a rock fighter, not just another retailer. Livesen. Own less, live more. Welcome to the Rock Fight, where we speak our truth, slay sacred cows, and sometimes agree to disagree. This is an outdoor podcast that aims for the head. I'm Colin True. It's Monday. I'm here with producer Dave and Eoin Comerford, and today we're going to talk about what went down last week at one of the biggest outdoor shows in the world, ISPO. But before we get to that, have you subscribed to the Rock Fight's weekly newsletter? If not, you still have time to get the original Rock Fight content that we don't put anywhere else. Head to rockfight.co and click join the mailing list to sign up. Lastly, if you're new around here, we would love it if you subscribe to join the Rock Fight by lobbing a little old stone at that follow button on whatever podcast app you are listening to us on. Give us that 5-star rating as well, please. It really helps out the show. Speaking of the show, let's start the show. All right, we're mixing up our typical Monday format this week because the outdoor industry's inside man and consigliere to the Rock Fight, Eoin Comerford, is just back from ISPO, like 12 hours removed from his flight probably. So Eoin is going to sit in with producer Dave and I for the whole show so we can get the lowdown. Welcome back, Eoin. How what time zone are you kind of in right now, like physically? What does your body feel like?
I think I'm somewhere over the Mid-Atlantic. Actually, let's say the Azores. I wouldn't mind being in the Azores, so that's what we're going to go with.
That's good.
So ISPO is generally regarded, I think, by a lot of people to be kind of the cream of the crop when it comes to the shows for the active sporting and outdoor space. I mean, now, is this first time the ISPO for you? Have you been before?
No, actually, this was my first time. My buyers, my chief merchant would go and would always come back raving. Just best show in the world. So big, so many brands. And I definitely was jonesing to go, but just as a CEO, the investment of time to get over there was just too much.
Right.
So I could never pull the trigger.
Did you see a difference, like just seeing it in person for the first time versus what we typically see here in the States?
Yeah, I mean, it was a little bit different. Just the overall vibe was slightly different. But it was a trade show. I've been to lots of them. And it was a trade show.
At the end of the day, it's booths and people's stuff. Right? Yeah, right.
And I think the thing that everybody had built up for me, the basic incredible size, is no longer there, just because it's less than half the size of what it was.
Oh, no kidding! It's that much smaller.
Yeah. So I did a little research and I pulled up. You can look it up yourself. The PDF of the hall guide from the 2019 show. Okay. And to those that haven't been to ISPO, it's all these halls. So there's halls A1, A2, A3, and they go back seemingly forever. And then B halls and C halls, and they're all kind of separate but interconnected. And back in 2019, we had 6 times 3. So 6 of each of those halls times ABC, right? So 18 halls total. This go round, it was 3 times 3. So 9 halls.
Oh, wow.
And not entirely full. So, yeah.
Yeah, so David and I would get to go over sometimes, well, every time when we worked for Polar Tech, and it took multiple attempts to kind of take in the whole show back in the day. Like, I mean, you don't just go out and like tour the floor in like 45 minutes like you would like an outdoor retailer or something like that.
Yeah, because the way it broke down though is, and typically this was the case in the past. The A halls were the outdoor halls, right?
Right.
And but in reality, there weren't that many big brand booths. Like in the past, again, if you look at the hall planner for 2019, North Face had a huge booth. Columbia had a huge booth. Marmot had a huge booth. Like these monster booths. There weren't that many big booths, and the few that were of any size, I think Rab had a big booth just inside the door. Black Yak, those were kind of the two big ones, I would say. No U.S. brands, and
How about the ski hall?
But there wasn't really a ski hall.
See, that's another big difference. One of those
Wow.
missing ski halls. Those, in fact, back in just even a few years ago, that was probably the biggest, most impressive of the halls, because though that was definitely a booth arms race going on. The Bogners, the Obermeyers, the kind of traditional ski brands all just showed up, and just massive structures, and just it was amazing.
It was. I think I don't remember seeing any real snow sports.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And like even the local German brands weren't there. Like Salewa, which is like based like from Munich, and no Jack Wolfskin that I saw. I mean, it's and even those halls, the A1 through 3 halls, there was a lot of fabric and trim suppliers interspersed in there towards the back of each hall. And so it wasn't like they were full of brands. So, clearly facing all the same issues that we're seeing in the US market. And unfortunately, I think coming up with a similar, in my mind, erroneous answer, which is, we need to move we need to move the show into the ordering window, right? Yeah. So you looking back at 2019, the show was the first week in February. Here we are now, first week in December. Okay, so moving it again back into the quote unquote ordering
That's
window, right? And it's so, in my mind, wrong-headed, because these shows were never order writing shows, right? And I think the way the logic goes is, hey, we're having trouble, attracting brands. We talk to some of the brands, and they say, well, the value of the show, we don't really get orders out of the show, so we're pulling back. So, okay, our answer to that is, let's move the show right into the middle of the most important retail timeline, right? I mean, if you're a retailer, early December, is that really a time you're going to take and go to a trade show? No, I don't think so. So you kind of you move it, and you don't get the brands back, which is exactly what happened to OR, when they made this move 2-3 years ago, or whenever it was. And by the way, you also then kind of lose the retailers too, because you've moved it into a much busier time of the year for them. So yeah, it's the timing is tough, because at the end of the day, I think for the brands, a lot of the brands in the from an OR perspective, they would have these really big booths, showing all of their wares, and realize that most of the real action took place, the 20,000 square foot booth, let's say, most of the action took place in 200 square foot meeting rooms in the back, which is where you would meet, do top to top meetings and talk strategy, right? You'd already made your buy for the year. But you're talking about, what's coming down the pipe. How are we really going to build this thing? Let's go, really getting down to the nuts and bolts. That's above just what are we selling, but kind of how are we going to sell it together, co-op marketing, yada, yada. And so, but I think the trade shows of the world heard, okay, not just let's cut down the booths and make it more about networking and that piece. It was just like, no, we wanted to make it an order writing show, which it's just never going to be.
Do you get the sense that, and obviously this seems like a problem, like when we're holding the shows and who shows up at them, if this show moved back to February, do you feel like that's a solve, right? Do you feel like all people like rush back? Because one thing I keep thinking about with Switchback coming up in June, which that's our version of the December issue is in the US is the June issue, right? And coming out of TRE and looking at the enthusiasm coming out of TRE, and I have no doubt that Switchback is going to be well attended, but I feel like that's mostly novelty and pent up demand for an event like that. And you kind of wonder, where does it go a few years after that? And I think that's kind of the question that needs to be answered like over time. But it just also, is it simple enough to say, well, if we moved it to this better time frame, we're back to where we were, or it's like, oh, more people are going to show up. I don't know if it's that simple.
I don't think it is that simple. I guess I'm glad my job is not to figure out the trade show riddle. Like Sean Smith, great guy. I don't envy him his job with OR and what's ahead. You're trying to kind of put the genie back in the bottle. I guess if I were really coming at it, I would say, okay, how do we create that sense of community, that ability to meet, have top to top meetings, in sort of brand centric modes, but maybe not to the same level, right? So, almost like part of the issue, I think, is the business model is flawed to a degree because it's all about selling square feet, right? And it's like, well, okay, if you just want to push for more and more, a bigger and bigger arms race, more and more dollars, more and more investment from the brands, that's really, those days in many cases are gone, right? So you're kind of working against the tide. So it's like, okay, how do we go with the tide? How do we actually create a show that is this place for people to come together, right? Have brand centric moments, have brands have the ability to tell their story without being all about product, and really be more about that coming together. So it's less about how many square feet you're buying, and it's more about how we create those networking opportunities and events and moments within that bigger show. How exactly you do that, I'm not sure, but I think that's where the value is. And if you can figure out the relationship between that value and a business model, then I think you might have something.
There is the business model of running the show. There is the need to sell, I guess, at a trade show, but it's interesting. That's probably the action that's least likely to return, just in terms of the way we buy now.
We haven't bought at trade shows in decades.
Exactly.
It never was.
Regional shows.
So that's why I think it's kind of
a
false kind of like, hey, we're not going because it's not in the order window. That's not true. I mean, it may be kind of true, but you're not going because you don't actually want to sell to the middleman anyway. You want to sell direct to consumer. You want to take the business to yourself. I feel like there's a disingenuous going on in here where everyone's trying to solve the problem that's not really the problem. I mean,
the order window, it's in the order window and everyone's pissed off about it, right?
Right, but it's the idea.
It's like no one wants to go when it's in the order window.
Like Eoin was saying, the reason, though, is a industry connective node. Without that, we shrivel. And so the industry brands need to act in the interest of everyone and attend a show. The idea that Wolfskin and Saleva weren't at ISPO, that's crazy. Right now, they don't have to have castles, like you said. It's just, but to be there, Patagonia is a great example of the way they've presented both there. They have cut down their square footage big time. It's a much more kind of just utilitarian type of approach, but they're there. But
exactly.
they're there.
And they're there and they're part of the conversation. They basically anchored the sustainability hub at ISPO. And their booth was, they had one sort of vignette around part of the product line, maybe whatever the new shell is or something. They had literally, I would say, 3 racks of apparel. Then they had a worn wear little section that you could go to. But the vast majority of the booth was a cafe. So they were, handing out free coffee. Everyone loves free espresso and cappuccinos. And then they had some tables, a bunch of tables where people could sit down and hang out. And so they were part of the conversation around sustainability, which is where they want to be. And so I think brands need to think about that. Like, how can we show up in an event for the industry that isn't just, the 2-story mega booth, right? But that talks to our brand, is a meeting place for the people who are interested in our brand, and then have brand events and brand moments throughout the show and at night. I mean, I got to tell you, the stuff at night was probably as important as what happened during the day at any OR I've ever been to, right? And so, whether you're throwing a concert or a show or a party, what have you, that level of community and the fact that your brand is the one bringing that community to the industry, I think created a bunch of goodwill for a lot of brands over the years, which has dissipated.
I just come back to, and it's an interesting thing too. Like there's the generational aspect of it, of like, we kind of open the conversation like, wow, it's like half the size as it used to be, and which is kind of a common thing you hear from the people like us who've been at these shows when they've been massive. And I do think also then you have something like the running event, which kind of muddies the waters of this conversation, but that's because that's a one activity centric show, right? David, you even said, I think on the pod when you reacted to, when we were talking about our reaction to the show, of like the running scene was vibrant and the switchback scene was a little the outdoor part of the running show was a little and the feedback I got from people who I knew who were there from the running side, where they're like, oh, I kind of hope the switchback part of the running event goes away because they're going to get their own show now. And so I come back to on all these things, I think it's you said it, Eoin, like, how does it get away from being about the product? And I think that's such an obvious thing to make it about the product, but maybe this is, again, just the evolving industry, right? We talk about anything that's, outside is outdoor now, and it gets like the stuff that's all the same and it all works really, really well. And the one thing I always keep coming back to are these, the offices of outdoor recreation and the economy conferences that they have. And that is an opportunity, and it's not organized, and there's not a national OREC. There's all these challenges that have to be overcome with that. But when you put under the microscope like these economy conferences, and it's a gathering of politicians and climate activists and conservationists and trail advocates, as well as business folks as well who work in the industry. And if we're looking for sort of a communal place to like gather where it doesn't have to be about order writing, because like Dave, like you just said, it's not about that, and it's not about the product because you can see the product a billion different ways now that you couldn't before. Is that an opportunity to develop and say like, hey, here are the gathering places that will impact the industry and the business, but also impacts all these other facets of the outdoors that we talk about constantly?
Yeah, and I think the brand presences should be, what is new and exciting, right? Because again, these huge booths would literally have almost the whole assortment for these brands, and 90% of it was the same stuff in maybe a different color, right?
When they try to put all that into a one-page ad too. It's amazing.
Right. I know. So
Gore-Tex jackets and fleeces.
Yeah, all 150 of them.
Just do a I don't know. Even for a bigger brand, you just do a 40 by 20 booth, but have it just highlight the 2 or 3 things that are new and interesting that you want people talking about, right? And then the other piece of the show, I would say, is new emerging brands. Okay, the brands that maybe everyone hasn't heard about, but really as an industry, let's lift them up because they're bringing new innovation to the industry. Because that's, I think, one of the things that, and we've talked about this, but that's missing in our industry is newness and excitement. So let's really lift those people up. As an industry, maybe the industry helps sponsor those booths. It isn't on those brands to necessarily pay to play to be there. I think they're an attraction to folks to come and maybe there's a whole, like for those brands, maybe there's a whole section beforehand where there's an educational aspect specifically for emerging brands where we invite in people from the industry who can help them along the way. Right, and really help make this truly a community aspect.
I was going to say, I think really what you're kind of getting at is in one way the trade show model really represents or benefits the old school hard power aspects of commerce. Right, here's my product. Here's my bank account to afford to be here in scale. I can take you to dinners. It is hard power, product and finance.
Yeah.
But it seems like, and what's interesting, because a lot of these brands would see themselves as this, but we're entering now an age of inclusivity and welcomeness are going to be the soft power skills that brands need to be better at, and they typically haven't been, especially in the business environment. What you're working together to lift the industry in that way, creating spaces that we can mix in and socialize and discuss. That is such the antithesis of the castle moat walled kind of visions that they've been before. Keep everybody out, and again, you don't have to be. You can still have trade secret and still want to kind of keep things under wraps until you launch. But this is really more of a psychology aspect of the way the industry works together and works with the new. And it just seems that we're kind of maybe exposing the lack of these soft power, welcome and inclusiveness at our brands. just in a way that maybe we wouldn't expect to see it.
So you were posting throughout the week, and you can find those posts if you follow Eoin on LinkedIn. And we also aggregated all of them and compiled them into one post on rockfight.co, and the links to both of those destinations are in the show notes. I did think it's funny to this conversation that you started off like, here's the Patagonia booth, and here's some things at the show, and it rapidly switched to, wow, let's go see what's in the marketplace here in Munich. So as on the heels of this conversation about kind of state of the industry, state of trade shows, what did you notice out in market, doing your market tour of all the really interesting retailers that exist there in Munich, and like what does it say about what's happening in the industry?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, if you haven't been to Munich, it's definitely worth the visit. And the one nice thing about them moving the show is it was right in the middle of their Christmas market, winter market, so the place was bustling. And it's home to some of the great sort of outdoor retailers in Europe and the world, quite frankly. I mean, Sporthaus Schuster is 6 floors of just, I don't know, visual merchandising mecca is how I would describe it. It's just phenomenal. And if you're into that, it's a must visit. Just seeing how they highlight brands, just with the vignettes, everything from the way that the mannequins are posed, to the lighting, to the color stories, to the signage. It's just chef's kiss, just and then but a very specific customer. That's a high end store. What I love is that like the first floor is kind of their outdoor / urban space. So and that's like the impulse buys. Those jackets are only $500. You just you've picked up your fancy ski outfit up on whatever floor 3, and you're like, you know what? I'm just gonna as I'm swinging by here, I'm just gonna snag a Patagonia or something. Impulse buy. So it's that's a wonderful experience. But then you can just, I don't know, a quarter mile away, you can juxtapose that with Globetrotter, which is as I described it in my LinkedIn post, it was like REI flagship store on steroids was kind of the vibe, right? Super bright. Like, whereas you look at Sports Schuster, all this really great target lighting. Like, Globetrot's like you're walking into a supermarket, but everything is laid out perfectly, and really with the true enthusiast in mind. I mean, you go down to the footwear section, and they've got like 5 or 6 different terrains that you can test the footwear on, like at different slopes. There's like hot and cold rooms, I think, for testing, jackets and whatever. It was covered actually when I was there, but there's a big pond in the basement where you can test your kayaks. I mean, like for the true outdoor lover, I mean, that's also an amazing experience. So really fun, wow. but totally different.
So can't wait for you to like announce that you're the general manager of Globetrotters, US. You get back into the retail game. You should all of a sudden like your retail love has been triggered here. It sounds
Where's Eoin? Oh, he's paddling in the basement again. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. He did 3 episodes of The Rock Fight and then decided to go back to running a shop.
But what it talks to is, I think, also that those that are investing in retail are winning right now. Like, you look at Dick's Sporting Goods, and they called it out in their most recent earnings call. They're winning because they're investing in House of Sport and creating experiences that are drawing in consumers, engaging consumers, and also they're creating experiences that brands really want to be part of, right? So they have On Running, they have Hoka, they have every hot brand, right? They want to be in World of Sport, and then to maybe a slightly lesser extent into a regular Dick's Sporting Goods. You look at the other folks like the academies of the world, they can't even get those brands because that experience is not there. So when while times are a little bit tough right now, if you can invest in retail and invest in experience, you're going to win. Take share. Yeah, and actually, speaking of all the suppliers that were there at ISPO, the one with the massive inflatable igloo was our friends at Thermore.
Well, speaking of Thermore, good segue. Oh, God, it's like you've been doing this forever.
Am I a natural at this or what?
just crushing it. Because it's time, guys. It's time for our weekly segment to make sure you're getting more out of the outdoors. It's time for More with Thermore. So there's a lot of talk around here on The Rock Fight about how outdoor apparel brands are or are not differentiating themselves. And if you're one of those outdoor apparel brands that kind of looks like everyone else, maybe it's time to do things a little differently. You can pivot into an entirely different category, or you can do what brands like Stio, Carbon, and Cool have done and start working with the original ingredient brand, Thermore. And if you're looking for design flexibility so your brand can stand apart, look no further than Thermore's EcoDown. And EcoDown is a synthetic insulation that is the alternative to down feathers. Made from 100% post-consumer plastic bottles, EcoDown has a super soft hand feel, a high warmth to weight ratio, and does not require down-proof fabrics in the design of the garment, meaning more design flexibility for your brand. And look, we know the churn for designers and developers never really stops, so do yourself a favor, reach out to Thermore today and get going on adding the best insulation to your next collection. Head to thermore.com and get started today, because whether it's making amazing new garments or staying warm and safe out on the trail, you can do more with Thermore. All right, let's get into a few other things that came out last week while you were at ISPO and traveling around the world. So after a slow week due to Thanksgiving, there was a flurry of C-suite announcements and a few other items that broke late last week. Let's just take a few minutes to rip through some of these. The first one that I wanted to bring up was Merrell, our friends at Merrell, because last week Wolverine announced the hiring of Merrell's new CPO, new Chief Product Officer. Noreen Naru-Pucci will now be leading Merrell's product strategy, specifically to, quote, expand the hiking and footwear brand's lifestyle offerings. I really did not want to make this joke, but I think I will. 2006 wants its strategy back, Merrell. Like, it sounds pretty well-trod ground for big outdoor brands or footwear brands. And now nowhere in the release was the word apparel written, but I kind of feel like that's probably what they're talking about more than anything. I don't know, Owen, what did you see when you saw this news?
Well, I mean, obviously, Merrell has been down the apparel path before. It just didn't end well.
Yeah, it's been 10 years. It's time again, right? Isn't that
everything that's old is new again? So the quote from the press release is Merrell's strategic move into the lifestyle segment caters to the growing demand for versatile footwear that seamlessly transitions from outdoor adventures to everyday urban life.
Yeah, this is a brand new development.
Well, I've never heard this whole seamless urban to outdoor thing before. That is.
What did you just say about the one shop you're in? Like, in the opening, you walk in and there's the urban and outdoor blend. Like, it's in market already, Merrell.
Yeah. This is a town to trail. Does that sound familiar to anybody? Yeah. So they do say footwear. So there is no mention of apparel.
Right.
But then I took a look at. I'm like, okay, if it were footwear that were going to become more lifestyle-y, what would it be? Because they've already got very lifestyle-y type sneakers. They've already got like a Crocs homage in the hydro.
If you go to their homepage right now, there's like a featured image of a very lifestyle-y looking shoe on the homepage right now.
So if you look though at the new CPO's background, very impressive, 30 plus years. It's 100% apparel is where she was from. So Mizzen and Main, Calvin Klein, Under Armour, Fila, etc. So yeah, I think so is the short answer.
Yeah. And look, I mean, wish her nothing but success. I mean, if she can pull it off, that's great. I just feel like this is, they've tried before. I saw some comments from retailers, especially retailers on LinkedIn, alluding to like they tried to launch apparel about a decade ago. Dave, any brand thoughts? Any thoughts here on Merrell?
I think we're all going to find that somebody just accidentally ran with a 1995 press release, and they just put it out there and decided to double down. So, sometimes
Dave. 2005. Let's be fair.
Oh, I am being fair. In fact, we've actually seen this press release. We did a whole little history dive into the Southern Utah's archive of some of this news, and you would be amazed at the same brands talking in the exact same way in the mid-'90s, just like you alluded to. It's like, yep, it's mountain to bar or trail to, I don't know, something else, but it's all versatile. It's been the
dream since the beginning.
Yeah, and sustainability. Yes, we're being sustainable and we're versatile. And
is their first follow-up to this can be like, we're thinking about a shoe called the Jungle Moccasin. We're not quite finished on the name yet,
right.
But
that's
where we think we might be headed first with this initiative.
Yeah, I did read that quickly, that headline, and just realize, entering the lifestyle market. That's you know what though? You want to set your goals obtainable. I think that's a really great idea. If they're going to enter the lifestyle market, I think they're going to succeed because they're already there.
Yeah, I guess the last thing to say on this, we move on to the next story, is it is funny, like just last week, Owen, I think it was just last week, you were mentioning that like, hey, Wolverine, Merrell, they're kind of, they're righting the ship. They're kind of getting it back into place where there's some things are going for their way financially. And then this is the immediate follow-up to that. I mean, does that cast doubt for your eyes that the growth continues? Like, is there a world where this plays out well?
Hey, you never know. I mean, if they really bring something new and interesting to the market, hey, absolutely. I think my question is, how are they going to launch it? Is this going to be D2C only, which is sort of where they ended up on their apparel program before? Or are they looking to do a full sell-in at retail? And is this going to be more of a capsule collection? Yeah, so many questions. You never know. It could work if they can really bring something special to the table.
Colin, this is just this timeline. It's just this timeline. If it doesn't work, we'll just snip it and we'll do a new one, because you know that there's plenty of other Merrell apparel lifestyle timelines out there with differing successes. So I just rely on the TVA, Colin.
It's the Wolverine
That's
multiverse.
Right, they'll solve it. The Merrell multiverse.
All right, another thing that was announced last week, Cotopaxi announced the hire of Lindsay Shumless, I'm going to say Shumless, as their new CEO after prior CEO Damon Wong departed the brand in September. So Cotopaxi is having what some pro sports analysts would call a rebuilding year, let's say. They've had several rounds of layoffs per sources close to the rock fight. And this is another CEO coming on board, much like the CPO for Merrell, with a little bit more of a fashion background. What do you make of this one, Owen?
From what I hear in the industry, Cotopaxi was caught with the whole inventory glut, maybe worse than most, just because they were on a much higher growth trajectory. I mean, they were just boom, 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 all the way through 22, 23, and then just hit a wall. And obviously they were projecting it to keep going up and up and up. And, now they're, a little challenge, and obviously some of their bigger retail partners had no open to buy, so it was sort of a bit of a double whammy there. But yeah, I'm a Cotopaxi fan personally. Just as a retailer, they were a great partner, and they actually brought something different to the table, which you need as a retailer, right? So just in terms of their whole look, the whole color blocking piece, that whole vibe, it was at least different. It passed the big test that I have for every new brand, which is, if I cover up the logo, can I tell you what it is? And the answer was yes, right? So I've been a fan, and even the color blocking thing actually came from the original Del Dia pack line, where they were taking scraps, right, and making it into these packs. So there's a sustainability story there. There's also a bit of a uniqueness story, because each pack is kind of different because it's made from different scraps. So there's an authenticity with the whole piece that hung together for me. That the color blocking, obviously, they don't do that with the jackets, but it worked, and it works, and I think it resonated with people as well. But yeah, the only challenge is, to a degree, that color blocking can be a little bit polarizing, right? Either you're into that or you're not. They were trying to sell in black Cotopaxi down jackets when we were at the Moose Jaw, and because every other brand, right, black is the number one color, and the answer is, well, we don't need another black down jacket.
Right. Well, that's kind of what I get to with them. Like, I hear what you're saying, and actually, it's a good point about covering up the logo and stuff like that. But it also feels like that's a risk as well, right? Because if that color blocking falls out of fashion with consumers, are they going to want to continue to support that brand if that's not if that's not what people are buying anymore? I've always kind of looked at them as kind of like outdoor light. And I think their most notable product is probably that Del Dia line you referred to. And I haven't looked recently, but kind of doing some digging a few months ago, like, they don't really even promote it that well. Like, you go to their website, it's really kind of buried. And I feel like that's the most interesting thing that they do. So even if it's like limited inventory, you'd think they'd be kind of putting that up on a pedestal. So I think it's a really interesting time in their development. Obviously, they've had success. They're in, they're in hundreds, or if not close to 1,000 stores nationwide. Like you said, you've had success with them. You like what they're doing from a lot of their early work and their brand history here. But I just think that what is the go forward for them? And I kind of wonder, is This is a little bit like some of the REI conversations we have. Like the new CEO seems to have a little bit more of a fashion background. Is that kind of like where they're headed to be the sort of outdoorsy fashion brand? Or is it like, is this the time to sort of like, kind of reel it back and become a true outdoor brand at this point with something that really resonates with enthusiasts?
I don't think they're going to be a quote unquote true outdoor brand, but I'm not exactly sure what that means. I mean, Colin, you tend to beat up on outdoor brands for, being all like top of the mountain stuff. And it's really just, for walking the dog. Whereas these guys are authentically not about that. They're about being an outdoor lifestyle brand. So I don't think they should take a knock for that. But yeah, that's the play. I think leaning into travel is the play here. Their Alpa travel line is really great, award-winning. Wirecutter's best travel packs. So they really have something there in terms of travel. So could they be the next big travel brand? Maybe.
No, that's a good point. Like you're right. If they did go the route of becoming more core outdoor, I'd probably just immediately start thinking, what the hell are you doing that? I think at the same time though, it is kind of a funny thing because like who else is like Cotopaxi? And this is not a bad thing, right? Like who else is doing kind of what they're doing or sort of straddling that line? And there's not a lot sort of in that lane, so maybe that's just the lane that they own.
Well, Patagonia. I mean, is Patagonia? I would say they're a lifestyle brand primarily. I don't think of Patagonia necessarily as a super technical, top of the mountain brand at all. And they seem. I
think they would disagree with you. I think they would disagree with you.
Yeah. Okay.
Dave, what do you got on Cotopaxi?
No, I think they're the brand that Merrell wants to be. Right, that's the you said they're a lifestyle.
Look at you merging the stories.
They're an outdoor lifestyle brand, unabashedly. I think that's an outdoor light. I think is a position in itself. Like that's, I guess you look at they kind of started with packs, which is a kind of gear, and their tagline is gear for good. I would say there's a lot less gear these days, so it's just near for good, but. I don't think that gets in the way of their trajectory or who's adopted them. Like you said, they came with a color story that was different and unique. And being out here on the West Coast in Portland, I definitely see people wearing Cotopaxi every day. And it tends to even kind of distill into a kind of an archetypal customer, at least out here. I think travel is exactly what folks are using this for. But Patagonia, they make gear. Of course they make gear. My goodness, they just sell a lot more that's not gear. But I don't know.
They're not a fashion brand.
Yeah.
Don't call them that.
That cracks me up. But no, I think that this is right for Cotopaxi to lead into that way. I think, why not? I mean, it's just their roots are this, and they'll make nice packs and bags, but at the end of the day, it's going to be about their signature outerwear.
Well, and to my concern about that I always say about is the color blocking going to last? I mean, it's like if they can get over the hump, then this becomes now like the color blocking becomes their iconic part of their brand, and now they're there with everything else that's kind of evergreen. Then that's the win. If you can instill
a design style, it works for Burberry for sure. I mean, there's just definite ways to do that, and you got to stick to your guns and really keep pushing it. I think part of that will be important is. Will they continue to invest in storytelling that keeps the brand up? I mean, if they're going to be a lifestyle brand, they're a fashion brand. And that means that you've got to change, not just your product has to be kind of on trend, your storytelling, you need to up that. And I haven't seen them really invest necessarily into that aggressive of the storytelling side that they're going to need to keep seasonal as they mature, for sure.
Yeah, and I reached out to the PR, the folks who handle PR for Cotopaxi too, to see if we could book Lindsay to come on the show and talk about this. I'd love that. I'd love to hear what she has to say about her vision. So hopefully that works out. The last headline to tackle is one that made our consigliere, who is usually pretty calm and measured, even right there he's calling me out, but he did it in a very nice way, send me a downright inflammatory text message from Germany last week. And in fact, Owen, you were probably just one of 3 or 4 people who sent me the story because the North Face is partnering with Kim Kardashian's brand Skims. It looks like more of a win for Skims and something that, maybe the North Face had to do. Like, what do you think about this collab, Owen? Let it rip.
Well, the text started off with "What the ever loving," yeah. So it was,
I'm sorry, I almost didn't think it was you. I'm like, wait, is this Dave? Like, what's going on? What's going on?
I don't know. North Face collabs, they're always a little bit of a head scratcher, and Gucci and all the rest of it. Hey, you do you, I guess would be part of it. But it feels very attention grabby to me. Right? It's like, oh, well, who's the biggest media influencer? Oh, well, that's Kim Kardashian. How can we do something with her? Oh, let's do this thing here. And let's just take, kind of some core products and we'll do them all in these nude colors and create this very arresting photo campaign. I must admit, it's like, whoa, okay. But like really like fully nude bodysuits on the ski hill. Okay. So I don't know. I'm a little flabbergasted, to be honest, but it's going to drop. I checked it on Skims.com, and the drop. So if our podcast is dropping on the morning of Monday, you have 24 hours to get signed up for the big drop, which is at 9 a.m. on Tuesday, December 10th, where you can snap up these amazing products. And you know what? It'll probably do really well and sell out in like 20 minutes. So I don't know.
Well, and I think that's the funny thing that people were sending this to me. They're like, oh my God, what do you think about this? And again, my reaction, I think is what I said back to you. I'm like, well, this is kind of just another long line of, of North Face collaborations. This one felt like Skims definitely was driving the ship here, right, on this one. And your point about attention grabby, like, well, VF is not having the best time. Maybe they're like, please, like, yeah, we want to partner with Kim Kardashian. Like, get us some good attention, something positive here that will sell out in minutes. And to our conversation about like the Ultra and Smartwool collab a few months ago, this is the kind of stuff we were talking about. Like, make it exclusive, make it drop it, create demand for something instead of just like barfing it onto your website and like crossing your fingers that people will buy it. So there's a lot here that I frankly kind of like about the execution. I do think that it is overwhelmingly a Skims product that happens to have a North Face logo on it, though. It doesn't look like North Face product at all. Like, I don't know where other than it's a puffy jacket. I mean, I don't really see the North Face in the product.
It's actually supposedly it's a retro Nuptse cut on the jacket.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't recognize. I own a Nuptse. I didn't say like, oh, it's a Nuptse. I didn't go there.
I hope that they didn't make a lot. Not just because. No, seriously, that sounds bad. But no, the reason I say that is because for this to really work, it has to sell out. Like, if it can just sell out day one, that's a much bigger thing than if it like hangs on and it's on clearance in January. I mean, just let it pop, let it go, let it burn bright, and then move on.
the one that Sierra's like, no, we're not taking this one, guys. Sorry.
I just want you to know I've just entered in my email to be first on the list to know when this goes live on December 10th. So both of you,
all right. Well, if you get one, you have to pod in it the next time we're all on here, Dave.
Absolutely be there. I am just going to say, I think if you took away the Kardashian name and described this as two activewear brands collabing with who bring different audiences to this, and they're bringing a design sensibility from each, then what's the problem? But when you add the Kardashian piece to that, then it kind of skews the what's this for? What's it about?
All the outdoorsy people are up in arms, like, oh, it's Kim Kardashian.
Where I
see
see this as a brand that attracts a very broad, diverse group of mostly female consumers that the industry doesn't do very well speaking to. And so if this brings North Face sensibility to this audience who could get the okay to buy it, because also, too, the color palette isn't from outdoor, maybe also that's why we don't speak to this audience very well. Maybe we're not building color palettes for them, right? And so I think I'd be totally curious to see how it does, but I like the idea of it for sure. I think that's where I come from it. And look, it's stylish. It's I'm okay with it.
Fair point. Like, I think about who's going to wear this, and I hope it's a younger demographic that's out there
for sure
in the fully nude bodysuit on the ski hill. But if you want to stand out, right, on the ski hill, it's actually bright colors is not going to do it for you.
This is for the schoolyard in cold cities, man. This is going to be in high schools and college campuses all across the north. I think that's what I see this. The bodysuit is such a pop piece, to your point. Like, I mean, they better have controlled that inventory. I don't see a ton on the ski slopes, but waiting for the bus in Philadelphia, yep, I might see this.
Okay. At the bar at the ski resort.
Or at the bar and ski. Yeah. Some interesting take there.
Well, take it from these three white middle-aged men.
Yeah, totally, right? Right?
Well, let's see. I can't wait. So in touch. Yes.
Now I can't wait to see how this drops on the 10th. I am here for it.
Well, maybe
gonna
that'll
just-
be the test in the future. When this thing is an absolute just knock it out of the park success, the next time they have one of these, they'll run it by the three of us. And if we hate it, they will.
That's
they will
right.
say,
That's
we
right.
we have something.
They don't get it. We're on to something. Let's go.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. Owen, you going to stick around for the parting shot?
Sure.
All right, we'll be right back. Hey, you outdoor retailers. Hey, listen up. You're sick of it, aren't you? Another sales rep walks in and they're showing off some flimsy, forgettable apparel line that looks like it was meant for a mall. The so-called outdoor brands churning out gear that won't make it past the doors of a Costco come Saturday. You need something else. You need gear built for granite and ice for the steep and the cold. You need a brand that's stripped down and built up for real wilderness. You need Northwest Alpine. Back in 2010, Northwest Alpine set out to make the apparel the big brands were forgetting. The others got caught up in fashion shows, but Northwest Alpine, they went back to the essentials. They make gear that's simple, light, strong, and made to last. And where do they make it? Right here in the USA. Now, if you're thinking, wait, you mean Northwest Alpine's Black Spider hoodie made with Polartec Power Grid is sewn up in the States? Yeah, you heard that right. And if you're tired of black, don't worry, they've got colors too. So here we are, in a time when everything's uncertain. Costs are going up, tariffs are looming, and old bloated brands are hiking prices. Northwest Alpine's here with American-made gear ready to stock your shelves. Get in touch by sending an email to info@nwalpine.com and set up a line showing today. Northwest Alpine, made here for all the right reasons. All right, it's time for the parting shot. And I guess, Owen, should you go first? You're kind of first time to the parting shot. Do you want to go first? Do you want us to go to first?
Sure. No, I'll go.
Okay.
So my parting shot, my first parting shot is actually about LinkedIn. As you know, I spend a ton of time on LinkedIn, and one of the things I've noticed, and this rant is about the profile images, okay? Because LinkedIn is a professional network, and so your profile image is part of your professional presentation, okay? So I'm not saying you've got to go out and spend hundreds of dollars on a professional headshot. Have a friend take a photo of you, or you can do it yourself. There's videos on YouTube on how to do it. Really, you can put something together. But I see so many of these headshots. Like, what are we doing, people? So one of my favorites is the "I look cute in this picture." And unfortunately, not to be too generalistic here, but young women tend to fall into this, where it's like they find the pic of themselves from their own photo reel where they look the best, and they crop themselves out of the picture. But you can still see where where there's somebody's arm is over their shoulder from the rest of the photo. It's like, come on, please. The other big one is, and this is a guy one predominantly, is the dash mount car shot. If you've seen that one, where they're in the car and they got the dash mount, they click the button and that's the pic. It's like, oh, come on, please. A couple other headshot faux pas. The too far away shot, right? Like it's a full body shot. It's like, okay, I can't even see what you look like. The other one, and somebody here is guilty of this one, is the black and white shot. And it's like, hey, you're allowed to do black and white, but only if you are a moody, creative person. Okay, otherwise, no. So sorry, Colin. Yeah, and so the other is the 20-year-old headshot. It's like, come on, we're not fooling anybody with the headshot from 2005. So yeah,
with
so
the
that is my parting shot.
the Polaroid watermark on the picture.
Yeah, just way. I mean, especially when you know somebody and you're like, come on, you haven't looked like that, since the Clinton administration. So yeah, no. So anyway, that is my parting shot.
That's a good one.
Owen was looking directly at me that entire time. Just like, it's like, I'm talking to you.
Well, because you have all three, Colin. Yours is medium shot.
Role. You're creating a podcast, so I'm going to give you a slight pass.
All right, thank you. Yeah, that's I definitely like when there's some interest to it, but yeah, my favorite outdoorsy version of the bad LinkedIn photo is the guy holding a fish that they just caught in the stream. Like the fish is in the foreground and there's this little tiny itty bitty body guy.
That is a subgenre of it, isn't it? Yes, the fish.
Yeah.
No doubt. I thought he was picking on you because you encapsulated like most of those categories in one shot. It's a black and white dash cam looking pretty from a medium distance. Right,
listen, our art director worked hard to create some really fun black and white GIFs, and then she updated her image. Like, oh, that's a good idea. I'll do that with mine. Then it'll be like a whole rock fight thing. But now, in a couple of days, when you see me in a boring plaid button down with my headshot, it means that like Owen got in my head, guys. So just be prepared.
Can't wait.
Boring Colin is coming.
I should be careful. People in glass houses with my grinning mug that's out there right now. So.
Dave, what do you got? What's your parting shot?
My parting shot today is again, I don't like to take too pointed of shots, but just seeing the press release come across about Thermos, the Thermos brand. Unveiling their new micro-influencer campaign. So they've got a lot of buzzwords in this thing, trying to make them sound very relevant and contemporary. It's just what I thought was interesting is that with all of the talk that we have had about tumblers and liquid holders for the last 10 years or so, and all the money that has gone to that, these categories have grown into these just gigantic, retail behemoths. I kind of forgot about Thermos, and there they are, and now we're seeing them with the word micro-influencer next to it. It just seems was kind of jarring. And
those are very, very small influencers.
Well, that's right. That is. And look, as someone who's
do they use like tiny little thermoses?
What's funny is that the picture in the press release is actually of two kids holding them. So it's like I don't know if they meant to do that or not, but they're totally playing up to that. No, look, micro-influencer, for those that don't know, is instead of following the path that I'm going to hire social media influencers with large audiences, which tend to be very expensive. They also tend to be very broad and not very targeted. You hire smaller individuals, more niche audience members, and you stitch them together into a kind of a larger tapestry. I think that is the right approach for everybody, frankly. That is a great approach to that. So them doing that totally makes sense. Like I said, it's just interesting. We haven't heard about them from a while with all these other brands coming up. I would also, and again, this is only speaking kind of to this side, trying to make them cool, I guess, and young. That would be certainly what they're going for. But as Thermos, as kind of the namesake of a category, they've really created this equity. This is one of those cases where I might want to say, you know what, you need to kind of be the 800-pound gorilla here. Go in and reassert your authority and dominance. Hey, wait a minute. Everybody here is copying what we have set. This is the original, and really...
Yeah, you're fucking Thermos.
That's right, and lean into that, and, get the corporate overlords to fund this and really, push back.
You're like Kleenex or Band-Aid.
That's right.
It's just right?
Right, and I think, again, big bands trying to seem small never works. It never works. It just, there's something disingenuous about it. I always use the Nike and skateboarding. They had such a hard time getting into skateboarding because they were always trying to not be Nike, or they would hire a different brand, and they would see how small and cool we are. And it wasn't until they finally said, you know what? We're Nike and 6.0, and we're going to lean into what makes us good. And you know what? We're going to make great shoes, and we're going to market, and we're going to brand, and we're going to pay athletes. That's the way you go after it. And that's just something that just kind of struck me. Again, I don't know the rest of their strategy, but the idea of micro-influencer and Thermos just together with just kind of not the height of contemporary branding, but we'll see. That's my parting shot.
I do want to picture. I like the idea in my head of a year ago as Stanley's reaching the apex of its run as the dominant bottle brand. Like someone in Thermos being like, "Come on, man! Really?
Yeah.
They've been around as long as these guys. We can't do that.
Yeah.
We had to deal with Camelback. We had to deal with Nalgene and Hydro Flask
and Yeti." Right, and
Yeti,
just man, just each one to Stanley, they've just taken body blows for the last 10 years.
All right, my parting shot. Word came out this past Friday that Diamond Brand Gear Company, which is a Asheville, North Carolina-based domestic maker of canvas-walled tents, is closing after 143 years due to the impact suffered at the hands of Hurricane Helene. And you heard me right. That's 143 years. This company was founded in 1881 as a Pennsylvanian fur and feather distributor. Funnily enough, that's producer Dave's side hustle as a fur and feather distributor. But before they changed course in the 1920s to focus on canvas goods and then relocate to North Carolina in the 1940s, where they began making outdoor gear to sell both in their own shop and at retailers like REI and LL Bean, which that all happened in the 1960s. So they make all of their stuff in the USA, in Asheville, and they became mostly known for their canvas four-wall tents, and their website is still up. I encourage you to go look at their products. They're amazing. And one in particular, the Soldier Crew tent, played a big role apparently during the Persian Gulf War. In 2015, there's a retail arm of Diamond that split off, became Diamond Brand Outdoors, which is a specialty retail shop. Also sustained some damage during the hurricane, but they're going to remain open. But not so for the venerable Diamond Brand tent makers. In a statement from the company's CEO, the damage sustained from the storm was just too much to financially overcome and attempt to rebuild. We've obviously been vocal about supporting the folks in Asheville because for many, Hurricane Helene may have happened 10 years ago at this point, but Asheville, like so many mountain towns, is dependent on their outdoor industry businesses to thrive. So we want to keep reminding everyone that we need to keep rebuilding that community as top of mind as possible. And there are resources in the show notes of this episode to support their businesses. But let's pour a little out today for an outdoor icon, maybe one you didn't know about, but that's a hell of a run. And, this wasn't just another Me Too tent maker, okay? This was an outdoor brand doing something truly unique and has been doing so since the fucking 1880s. So thank you, Diamond Brand. You'll be missed. And that's my parting shot.
Thank you for exposing me, Colin. I'm now on PETA's 10 most wanted list. Disappointing.
Sorry,
disappointing.
DavesFur.com's getting shut down.
Dave's Fur and Feathers.
Dave's Fur and Feathers.
Yeah. But all humane, though.
Yeah,
All
absolutely.
humane, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Fake fur.
Nice.
Fake fur.
They didn't want it.
From fake weasels. It's fine.
There's lots of real weasels.
All right, we can wrap it up there. The Rock Fight is a production of Rock Fight LLC. Our producer today was, you heard him, fur trapper, producer David Karstad. Art direction was provided by Sarah. Thanks for the bad headshot, Gensert. For Eoin Comerford, I'm Colin True. Thanks for listening. And guys, he's back to take us out. It's Krista Makes. He's going to sing the Rock Fight fight song. We'll see you next time, Rock Fighters.
Rock Fight!